From Wall Street to Main Street to help small business owners have the same capital as corporate America and give them the same resources as a larger company. We cover business funding, business credit, scaling, business consulting, and much more. Check out the website at shieldadvisorygroup.com. Welcome to the show, The Liquid Lunch Project.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Liquid Lunch Project. I am Matthew R. Meehan alongside my partner, the professor, Luigi Rosabianca. What's on tap today, Lou?
Matt, I got to tell you, pay attention on this one because there's going to be a lot of pearls of wisdom. Today on the podcast, we've got Scott Bushkie. He is the CEO and founder of Cornerstone Business Services. The reason this conversation is so important for small business owners is we tend to think as small businesses that the term mergers and acquisitions only relates to Google acquiring YouTube or Kroger acquiring Albertsons, but we don't realize that a merger and acquisition can apply to a local landscaper or a local HVAC company, and that is the backbone of the American dream. So, Scott, welcome to the podcast. Please fill these 30 minutes with pearls of wisdom related to M&A examples for small business owners.
Yeah, thank you. Glad to be on the podcast, and I will do my best.
So let's start. How did you get into the M&A space?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story. I fell into it by accident. Most folks that work in the lower middle market or in business brokerage, they have a first career, second career, and then this is maybe a third or fourth career kind of before they go into retirement. So the average age is in their 50s and 60s. They get into it. And I fell into it by accident at the age of 24. And I always say I was too dumb and naive to know that I shouldn't have got into it that young, and but just powered through sheer willpower and a lot of hours. And worked for another firm for the first 2.5 years back in 1998, 99, early 2000, and then started up Cornerstone in January 2001, and 23 years later, we're here about a group of about 20 of us.
Now, over these several decades, have you noticed the environment for small business M&A and like the lending space increasing and there being more options for your typical small business?
Yeah, so a lot of the clients that we work with are 5 million or more in revenue or $1 million in EBITDA or more. But even for smaller companies, there are so many buyers out there right now, and so many companies, family offices, private equity firms that are coming down market, they say. So if you've got a landscaping company that's doing $1 million, $2 or $3 million in EBITDA, there are so many more options now that you have than you did 10, 20 years ago. You mentioned HVAC in your opener. You couldn't give away an HVAC company 15 years ago. Now they're one of the hottest industries out there to be rolled up. So it's a good time to be both a buyer and a seller, because you've got a lot of baby boomers that are looking to retire and don't have succession plans. So if you're a company looking to grow through acquisition, it could be a great way to enhance the value of your business and to grow faster than you could organically. Because let's face it, it's harder than heck to find employees these days to come in and work. One of the gentlemen that sat on my board, he had a small little printing company, printing labels and things like that he took over from his dad, doing $4 million. He grew it organically, but then started doing acquisitions and got really good at it. Between growing somewhat organically and doing over 30 acquisitions, he exited that company with the company doing over $430 million when it started at $4 million. So it's just one little acquisition at a time. But that's kind of the outlier. But yes, it's a great time to be a seller because there's so much money out there. You don't have to be some big tech company. Most of our clients are blue collar companies, manufacturing, service companies, distribution companies, waste management, road construction. You name it, we've probably touched it over the last 23 years.
Scott, the reason you're on the podcast, besides being a charming gentleman, is to help us fill this ignorance gap with small business in America. So when a business owner has achieved a certain amount of success, he's getting a little long in the tooth, what is the first thing you do when engaging that client to prepare that business for an eventual sale? Walk us through the process, please.
Yeah, great. So the first thing is just walk before you run. Let's get to know each other. Let's have a discovery call. There's no obligation. It's confidential. There's no cost. Take an hour, just learn a bit more about your company, what your goals are, what success looks like, maybe 12 months from now. and what your concerns are, what you're excited about, and really help just educate you as the business owner. And then in most cases from there, it'll go into what we call an FMA, or a fair market analysis, which instead of spending 10 or 20 grand getting a big valuation, it's only $5,000. And it's a great investment because this is typically the owner's largest asset that they have. And for $5,000, they can understand truly what it's worth in today's marketplace and why it's worth what it is. So it's not just here's a number and goodbye. It's here's what it is, here's why it is. And if that number doesn't make sense, also what you could do, the top 2 or 3 things you could do to enhance the value and make the company more saleable, kind of the biggest bang for the buck. Because again, most business owners don't know what they don't know. They only go through this process once, and it's their, like I said, usually it's 70 to 80%, if not more, of their overall net worth. So if they do it right, things can be really good for them and their kids and their community and their family. And unfortunately, so many of them do it wrong, and they take a great business, and to your point, long in the tooth, they wait too long. They can't emotionally, get away from what, their identity is the business, and then all of a sudden they hang on to it too long, and then it's worth nothing, and they end up shutting the doors, and the legacy's gone, the employees lose their job and everything else. So it's, conversation, valuation, and then what we recommend is to meet with your tax people and say, okay, let's just say it's a $10 million value. Well then, okay, great. Who cares if it's 10 million? What am I going to net out of this company? What am I going to net out? Because that's really what you should care about. And let's just say it's $6 million. So that sounds like a lot, but I still don't know what does this mean for my company or my family and I. So then we recommend them meet with their financial advisor, wealth management person, whatever you want to call them, and say, okay, if I could live my ideal lifestyle, what does that look like? Here's all the assets I have now. Here's the debt I have. What is that gap? What we call it the lifestyle number. What's that wealth gap that you need to live your ideal lifestyle? And if the net number is 6 and your lifestyle number is 5, hey, great. You can go now with confidence and know that you can live your ideal lifestyle. But if your net number is 6 and your lifestyle number is 8, well, then you got 2 choices. You either lower your lifestyle down to 6, or you go back to our step 1, which is value enhancement. And again, we're going to give you ideas to help. And then we just go through that process. And what we'll do is, with the initial investment of $5,000, we'll update that evaluation for up to 3 years at no cost for your business owners. And that way they can understand where they are today and then make the adjustments that they need to make over, could be 3 months, could be 3 years, to eventually prep their company for sale. Because most people wait until they don't plan. And that's such a huge problem. They just wake up one day and they still have a successful company, but they go, oh, I'm tired, I'm burnt out, I'm not feeling well, whatever it is. And now they want to go to market. And they typically end up leaving so much money on the table when they do that on a kind of a last minute piece.
When somebody usually approaches you for selling their business, right? What are the top 3 things that usually need to be fixed, first of all, most of the time? There's got to be a static couple of things that people just overlook.
Yeah, the biggest item, especially for companies in our space, the low bit of market space, is the business owner of the business. Are they the hub that holds everything together? Have they worked themselves out of the company? Because what I'm buying is not what you did in your prime 5 years ago or what you did even last 2 years ago. I'm really looking at, and buyers look at the last 12 months and then the future 12 months. So one of the biggest mistakes is I don't train up my leadership team. I don't bring other people in. I'm doing everything. And now if I'm the buyer, it's like, boy, Matt's the whole business. And if Matt leaves, what did I buy? And Matt's going, well, if I'm selling my company, why do I want to stick around for more than 6 months or a year? So it's really working yourself out of the company, number one. The second thing is holding on too long, where you are burnt out. It's like running a race and you're getting to the starting line and you already got a pulled hamstring and you tweaked your right knee. It's like, you want to be able to go through this finish line because the timing is so important. The buyer doesn't care what you did 2, 3, 4 years ago. Like I just said, they're really looking at what are the TTM, what are the trailing 12 months or last 12 months, because that's what they might put the majority, if not 100% of the value on a company. So we had a company once, in fact, it was, Luigi, a landscaping company, and they were in business for 30 years, just a great company over 30 years. And he just held on too long by a year, which is, again, 3% too long out of a 30-year career, one year too long. And he went up and all of a sudden he burnt out, and you could start to see the effects of being burnt out. So we did the estimate of value, or the fair market analysis, and we gave him his value, which was still a good value. He goes, oh, I was hoping for a little bit more. And we said, yeah, if you would have sold a year earlier, the value was 40% more, 40%.
Wow.
So he held on 3% too long, but because of that, his value had changed 40% in 1 year because, as numbers go down, it's like a stock market. You can't go, well, geez, I wanted to buy, Google at this price and now it dropped down to here. I want to sell it back at the high point. That doesn't happen. The market is the market. You can all hope and wish your company's worth some value, but it's what is a buyer going to see? So holding on too long because you can't separate your identity typically from the business, or you just don't know where to start. Being the business. And then the last I'd say is just really either document your process and systems, again, to really have that, that predictability of how your systems run or your processes run within your company, or how you make something, or your top customer. You have growth within your company, but your top customer is 40% of your business. Again, could be Matt's my top customer. I've known him for years. He always pays. But now Lou's buying the company. He's like, I don't know who this Matt guy is. And what if Matt goes away? I lose 40% of the company in cash flow. Matt goes Luigi goes bankrupt because debt doesn't kill deals, cash flow kills deals. So that top customer should typically be 20 to 25% or less in your business. Anything over 20, 25%, that's going to either affect the value or the structure, or some buyers will just walk away because there's too much risk there.
Scott, I think I just pieced two pieces of the puzzle together, because when you started the conversation, you were talking about how you need a stable of experts and professionals in your corner. But I could see how, while you're doing this valuation, if you find dings in the company, to be able to fix those dings, you probably need a really strong accounting team, bookkeeping team, maybe a tech team, maybe a CFO. How do you liaise with them? Do you make recommendations for outsourced third-party vendors for the business owner, or do you hope that they find the right person? How's that part of the process work?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, because because there's two things that, if you want to sell your business, the two things that you can do to enhance, you have a much better chance of selling your company and also at a premium, is, to your point, one, start sooner, planning sooner. So don't wait till you're ready to sell. Start 1, 2, 3, at least 3 years ahead or even more. And the second is build a team of specialists around you. So that is, not just the investment banker, M&A advisor, but who is your tax people? Do you have a CPA that is really good at tax, or estate planning attorney? Excuse me. Who's your financial advisor? Who's your M&A attorney? That's a big one. Most people have an attorney that set up their LLC or their company and maybe did some collections or set up non-disclosure agreements or employee agreements or whatever it might be. But very, very few attorneys are specialists in M&A. And I liken this to think of if you have a doctor, your general doctor, and you've gone to that doctor for 30 years and they give you a physical every year. You like him or her, they know you and your body better than anybody else from a professional standpoint. But also now you're having a lot of headaches. You go to your doctor, they do a scan, they find out that you've got a tumor in your head. Are you going to have your doctor who you know and you like, who is a doctor, who's never done brain surgery before, go, you know what? I think he or she could do it. They're good people, and you die on the table. Or are you going to bring in the brain surgeon, have he or she do that surgery, that's all they do every day, and then go back to your doctor, regular doctor, for a checkup? And that's the big piece of it, is bringing those people together. And yes, so we make recommendations all the time. If they have an accountant that can do the tax work, great. If they don't, we can bring someone to the table. We vetted folks from all over the country for different industries, different shapes and sizes. And then also, if we talked about the value being at 10 million and the net number being 6, but the lifestyle maybe is at 8 or anything above, or I'm sorry, it's above that they need to get more. They need to get more value. We don't charge to do the value enhancement work. We don't do that work. We'll identify it, but then we can bring different consultants to the table. Like, it could be a fractional CFO because their numbers need to be organized better, or it could be doing a QOV up front, because that's the same due diligence that a buyer's going to do. To your point, Lou, let's do it now. Let's figure out if there are anything that isn't right to GAAP or whatever else it might be, because now you have time to fix it, because otherwise the buyer's going to find it. The buyer will, if you cannot hide anything in selling your company. Between all the diligence that's done, it's going to come out. So we always say go ugly early, because if you hide something and it comes out at the 11th hour, it's going to probably be a haircut, or they're going to try to reduce the price or walk away altogether. And so it can be very costly and hurt your credibility.
Scott, part of this conversation, we're going with the assumption that the incoming purchaser is an external third party. Do you have any instances where maybe the purchaser is someone internally, whether it's a GM, a foreman, a senior vice president, the employees, maybe even a brother?
Yeah, we've seen seen some of those scenarios where they go, I've got a management team that I really would love to have some equity, but I really don't want to, lower the value per se and give the good guy discount that could be significant, or I don't want to wait 7 or 10 years for them to pay me out of the cash flow, because most, if it's a son or daughter or a management team, they don't have a lot of money because they've been, they haven't built up this huge nest egg. So where they can kind of have their cake and eat it too, what we've done sometimes is we'll find a family office or a private equity firm that understands the vision, understands the culture and the growth opportunities, and we'll partner with the management team or with the children. So then maybe the family office owns 60% and the management team owns 40%. But now you're getting the vast majority, if not all of your money at close as a seller. So you're not having that risk that even if you got the best management team in the world, but if a competitor comes in or the market drops, all of a sudden that value of 10 million you thought you're going to get goes away. And it's like, man, I worked all my life for 30, 40 years and I didn't get that value out of it. So we want to help you extract that value, but then also give the opportunity to have that management team have a meaningful opportunity to grow and truly build some real wealth over time. So yeah, there's so many options these days. That's the cool thing, is that we run through probably 8 or 9 different options with every client to see which is the best fit for them.
So, the SBA has had more changes to their guidelines in the last 18 months than they have in the last 10 years. And just recently, they allowed partial buyouts for business owners in the business. And even if you're an employee of that business, the SBA will lend the money to buy it out. What have you seen on that? Because that's really taken change only since May of 23. Have you dealt with a lot of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it helps. We work with some companies that do SBA. Some of them are a little bit larger than that get more conventional financing. But anytime you can get more creative financing options and bring more options to the table, it just helps sellers get what they ultimately want. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we try to do at Cornerstone is we actually have an exercise that I wrote a book and a workbook called Finish Strong, Sell Your Business on Your Terms. And in there, in chapter 2, it's an exercise of what's important to you in a sale. Because most people, when they think of a sale, what do you think about? Cash, baby. Show me the money. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of times, if there's a seller remorse, it comes down to 3 things. One is I sold my company to an unsolicited offer. I got an unsolicited offer, I sold, and found out down the road I left millions of dollars on the table. 2, I sold my company for what I thought was the most value, but I didn't think about culture. I didn't think about protecting my employees. I didn't think about all these other things that I really cared about. I just got excited about the money, and all of a sudden now that my company's culture is terrible, or my management team is left because the business is not doing well, or whatever else is. Or the last option is I'm selling. Most business owners sell because it's not fun anymore. The number 2 reason people sell behind retirement, number 1, is they're burnt out. We've had multiple surveys, national surveys. So it's not fun anymore. I'm tired. I just want to do something different, or my health isn't great. But they have no idea. So they're getting away from that, but they have no idea where they're going. And I can tell you, when you've done something for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and all of a sudden you're going to go to retirement and just relax, just because you sell your company doesn't mean that energy, that passion, that drive gets turned off. And Bo Burlingham was interviewed in a movie that we created called M&A, and he wrote a book called Finish Big. And it was interesting. He interviewed hundreds of business owners, and he said, the worst or scariest question a business owner could be asked after the sale of their company was, so Matt, at a cocktail party, Matt, so what do you do? And before I go, well, I'm Matt, the owner of X. And now I'm like, well, I don't know. I'm not a business owner anymore. And I'm just kind of retiring and playing golf. So we all as business owners serve someone. We serve our customers. We serve our employees. What are you going to do next? So again, we have an exercise in our book of what does that bucket list look like? What do you want to be remembered for? I actually taught a course on this at an EO deal exchange. And it was interesting. Everybody did it. We had to meet with partners. And then I had about 6 people raise their hand about what do you want to be remembered for? Guess what wasn't mentioned one time in what they want to be remembered for.
Their business?
Their business. It was all about family, kids, community, legacy. It was not about having the biggest business or the most employees or anything like that. It was just very interesting. Again, there's no right or wrong.
We have to be like really, really honest with ourselves. That person who, yes, is concerned about a different legacy has had this business for decades, and that business has put his kids through college, has put food in the fridge, and has given him or her the lifestyle that they've enjoyed for their entire life. How do you detach them from that reality? I mean, you've got to be part therapist, part philosopher.
For sure. Yeah. If I was going to go back to school, it'd be a psychology major, not a business major, for sure. And I think one thing that's interesting that has kind of played out over time is, and a lot of CPAs and attorneys, or other trusted advisors, is longevity of a business equals success. Hey, if you could pass it on to a second and a third and fourth generation, that is the ultimate success. And it's somewhat biased because obviously, if you pass on to your kids, I keep a client. I'm your attorney, I'm your CPA. But really, and there's books out there by Dr. Tom Deans and others that say that, and it shows that passing on a business typically will destroy value over time more than it will enhance value. Very few companies, only 3% of companies make it to a fourth generation. And that's not just the United States, it's worldwide. So really to understand, yes, and it's not easy, separating your identity from the business and go, why did you start the business in the first place? What's truly important to you? When they write your eulogy, what do they want? What do you want them to say? Because I've seen people you can be the best business owner in the area, make the most money, employ the most people, but you weren't there for your kids. Your grandkids didn't know you. You were 300 pounds overweight and died early. What do you want to be? What do you want to be known for? And I think separating the two and really get them to think about what is this next best chapter? Because what we're giving them when we sell their company, we're giving them the gift of both time and money to do what they want. And think about that. How many times have you had a bunch of money and you're in the rat race going, and you don't know how to get out of it? Or you got all the time in the world, but you got no money to do anything. Or, if I only had my money, I could do this, or I could travel, or I could do this for my kids, or, whatever it is. So we've seen that more people now are selling their company, extracting the value, which are strong multiples right now, and then helping their children start a company up that they're passionate about, that they're interested about, versus just trying to shove them into a business that they probably many times aren't passionate about, or don't have the same skill sets as mom or dad to really take it to the next level. And that's why more and more people are trying to sell companies, and more people are growing through acquisition. And I just read a report that was out by the Retirement Income Institute that said 4.1 million baby boomers are turning 65 in 24, 25, 26, and 27. So ARP calls it the silver tsunami. So think about that. 4.1 million baby boomers are hitting the official or unofficial 65 age over the next 3 years.
And how many of those do you think are business owners? A lot.
Good guess. A lot of them. A lot. I mean, with the boomers right now, it is the largest trend. Them going through retirement, which the average age is 68 right now. The youngest boomer is 60. And their transition to retirement is the largest transfer of wealth this country has ever seen in its entirety, which is crazy.
So right now, we speak to business owners all day long, like Luigi said, right? The last year and a half has been pretty tough for people, right? If this new president comes in, right, and things start to get good, this is the time people should actually start thinking about it, right? Selling on an uptrend, right?
Yeah, interest rates just got cut, another 25% interest rate cut. So yeah, ironically, and this is Vern Harnish, who's the founder of EO, talks about this in the film, is like the time you should sell your business is when it's doing the best and it's growing and you're making so much money. And unfortunately, what do you think business owners say at that point in time? Man, I'm making so much money. Why would I ever sell now? And then you crest over the S curve, and now you're not doing as well. It's like, oh, now it's time to sell. But oh man, now it's not worth anything.
Just so yeah, one more roll of the dice. One more roll of the dice.
Yeah, we call in my book, I call it one-more-year-itis, where they can't let go and they make up an excuse. Just one more year. If you ask somebody, when are you gonna exit out of your company? Oh, probably about 5 years. You go back to 2 years later and ask them, when are you gonna sell your company or exit? What do you think they say? About 5 years. They don't go, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year. It's always 5 years because it's close enough that my spouse can get excited that I'm close to retirement, that I'm getting there, but it's far enough away that I really don't have to do anything yet in my eyes. So it's that's where we talk about in the workbook of really putting a stake in the ground of when you truly want to be out of your company. And there's no right or wrong answer. It could be 1 year, it could be 20 years from now, and then start to work backwards of what can you do to enhance that value and really get to where you want to be. And because most business owners, get into it, it's like a race. You take off in a marathon, you sprint out there, and then you get into a rut, and you kind of get in that lifestyle business. But now you have no idea. There's no mile markers along the way. There's no coaches unless you bring one in to figure out where is that finish line? Where am I going to actually finish? And again, a lot of people, only 20 to 30% companies successfully sell according to national surveys. And that's what happens. People just get burnt out. They go down and end up just shutting the doors. And it's sad when we take on a client, we have an 85% closing ratio that we're going to sell your company at or above your expectations that we all agree to. So it's, again, that's where bringing the team together can really help them maximize the value and give them the best chance of selling the business.
So Scott, you just gave us a very important statistic. Those people that don't engage you and don't sell their business, do they just shut the doors one day?
They do. Yeah. Successful companies they'll try it themselves and ask probably, again, if this is your big asset and it's almost like giving up one of your kids for adoption, do you think business owners think their business is worth more or less than what it really is?
More.
100%. So when you go out there, they're overpriced. You're going to talk to people. You're putting an asking price out there. People are going, "You're crazy," or "Nope, that's not right." You burn through a handful of good buyers. You go, "Well, I can't do it." And while you're doing that, if you're trying to do it yourself, you're taking your eye off the ball. So now you're not paying attention to the business, and it's just this death spiral. And eventually you go, "Yep." I took a picture. I was just with my daughter last week. We snuck out of school for a day and it did a father-daughter day, and saw a business, and I took a sign. On the sign, it said retirement sale. And what that means is they tried to sell it, they couldn't. And this is the classiest way to say I'm going out of business and I couldn't sell my business, is retirement sale. And that was a great business. It was a painting company, sold paint and everything else, probably been there for 30, 40 years. And they just didn't know how to get out with the right people.
I have a saying though, when you see that going out of business sign, going out of business is good for business because everybody comes in there to see what they can get.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Going out of business is good for business.
But it is. It's sad because, again, it's something that for this business owner, they probably spend more time with their business than they did their kids. And it's their blood, their sweat, their tears. It's a lot of their identity. And to be able to say, I sold this company to someone that I got to choose, because again, we get about 4 or 5 offers on average per client. So they get to choose who they sell their company to. They get to know that there is no asking price with our companies. And so they didn't leave any money on the table. They got to choose. They didn't leave any money on the table. They have that peace of mind. And now they can retire knowing the company's still going. Their employees still have a job. The legacy is still there. Or the other legacy that they can leave is they hold on too long. And again, 50% of the time they exit not on their terms, the death, disability, divorce, whatever it might be. So all of a sudden, and I've had this happen with one-more-year-itis. We had a gentleman that owned a bunch of warehouses, and he could have sold and been just fine. We told him his name was George, and George could have got his price, got a good value, never would have had to worry about money again. But George always had this one more year. I just want to rent out one more building. I just want to do this. I just want to do that. And we were supposed to go to I was going to a Packer game. I was supposed to meet him there. We were going to have a beer at halftime. And George didn't show up. And I've known him now for 3 years because we've been talking just one more year for over 3 years now. And it was kind of weird. And all of a sudden I got a call from his wife about a week later because I left a couple messages. He's like, "Oh, yeah, George had a stroke at the Packer game. And he's in ICU. George died a week later."
Shit.
George was the business. So now not only does this wife with the guy, he was 54 years old, very young, is his wife grieving her husband, 2 kids, son and daughter, grieving the loss of their dad. But now they're like, "Oh, shoot. What about the business? Dad was the business. How do we do that?" And the business went down. And so they had a tragedy. They had a mess. So you can either proactively think about this as an owner and plan for it and do it on your terms, or you can just sit back and go, "I don't want to do it. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to get a separate identity. Oh, they could never run the business without me." and then eventually something bad is going to happen to you, and now your legacy will be leaving a mess to your family. You know, your single income probably gone. The value that you could have extracted, millions of dollars, pennies on the dollar, and just the mess that you leave your family. And that's real. That happens all the time. And then all of a sudden you got, well, it's going to go to my 3 kids. 1 kid's in the business, 2 aren't. Well, how does that, how is that fair? Well, I'm running the business. Well, geez, you better run it. And we're getting the same thing. I mean, it's you passing on to the next generation and you're not there. That just is that much more complexity because you haven't shared what your wishes are and everything else. So it's really, I can't emphasize enough. The more you can proactively plan, understand what the value is, understand how you can maximize the value, understand what buyers are looking for. We can share all those different things with you. And then bring a team together whenever it's right for you. Again, it doesn't have to be today. What I can tell you today is that there are so many more buyers than sellers, as we mentioned earlier. Like, again, usually we average 4 or 5. Right now we're averaging 13 offers per client, which is just ridiculous. And getting about a 30% premium over what other companies of similar size and scope are selling for, just because we know how to bring all the buyers together at one time and create that urgency and scarcity.
Let's talk about that for a second, because, just this week, we had a client that came to us, did all the work. We got him an offer. We got him exactly what he was looking for from a bank, right? At the same time, we didn't know he was talking to somebody else, a different bank, that said they can get him double the amount of money. Guess what? He didn't go with us. He went with the other bank, right? Mm-hmm. We got a phone call this week. Hey, can we go back to that loan? That deal was off the table, right? So can we talk about sometimes the right buyer is not always the one saying they're going to write the biggest check. They may
100%. Yeah, man, it's a great point. So I would say when we look at our studies over the years, 2 out of 5 times, our clients will take not the highest offer. They'll take a lower offer that's got a better cultural fit. They're going to protect the employees more, a better structure, more cash at close, or they'll just, I just like them better. So that's our job as the advisor, because again, as you as the business owner, you've never gone through this process before. We talked about off camera, but think about this. You're the best athlete in the world and you've never played golf before. You're going to go to the local country club, pick up a set of clubs for the first time and play the club pro. Even though you're a great athlete, how do you think that's going to go?
Not pretty.
That club pros play that course 1,000 times. They know every inch of that course. That's all they do is play that course. Well, that's what it is with a business owner trying to sell their business to a family office, private equity firm company. These corporate development teams at companies or family offices or private equity firms, they have one job every single day is to look for companies and buy companies, not at the highest value, not to get what you want, at the lowest value, and try to put as much risk on the seller with earnouts and seller notes and everything else. And that's their job. So they're going to tell you all the right things. They're going to look at 3, 4, 500 companies and buy one. You get one swing at the bat, one at bat. And if you try to do it yourself, it's typically not going to work well. That's why we exist. That's why firms like us exist. But yeah, it's also our job is to vet the buyers, because someone might say, well, I can pay this high price, but can they get to close? Do they have the equity? Do they have the capital stack? Do they have the financing lined up? We can ask all those questions because we know the questions to ask that a business owner typically won't know. It's not because they're not smart or they're not sophisticated. They are brilliant within their companies. They are wicked smart. It's just they've never gone through this process before. What is anything you do well the first time you do it? Typically very little of anything. So that's the important piece. And that's why, again, only 20, 30% sell is because, you think of all the complexities of a business. And if you don't have the right team around you, you're going at this blind with your largest asset. And it's sad. And that's why we get excited. Our mission at Cornerstone is to create positive, life-changing events for all the lives that we touch. That's it.
One thing I want to touch on here is when somebody gives you a letter of intent, it's non-binding, right? So don't think that's going to be your sales price, because they're going to find something in the Q of E that comes back quality of earnings for everybody. They're going to find holes in the business. And
many times, yeah. So that's why we do a lot of diligence up front, or we might bring in a sell side QV or quality of earnings to do that work up front to see what it is, and then modify, either fix those problems and then go to market, or go to market knowing what those issues are and putting them out early so they're not as destructive to the value. But yeah, when we go to market, once we get a letter of intent signed, very few times do we actually get a haircut or does the value get reduced. But to your point, yeah, if you're doing it yourself, if you think, oh man, this is the minimum I could take. They're not, even if your business does well, they're not paying any more. You've set the cap on your value, and it's only going to go down through diligence in some cases. And that's where it's, yes, there's some that will tell you you're going to pay more, but who can really get to close? And that's part of our job as investment bankers or M&A advisors, is to really peel back that onion on each buyer and really understand who that group is and what their MO is. And we could talk with different deals that they've done, different sellers, and did they close on time? Did they do what they said they're going to do? Did they try to reduce the price? What were they like after they sold their company? We can try to get all that intel so you as a business owner can make as well-informed decision as possible. But at the end of the day, it's the business owner choice of who they want to go with. It's not who we think, or not the highest price.
So let's say prep takes 3 years, right? At what portion, let's say we have a perfect company we want to go and sell today, right? What is the estimated time frame to get to close?
Yeah, so for us to do that fair market analysis, about a month, 3 weeks or so, 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how we get the information. But once we go to market, once we sign an engagement agreement, it's about a month to put together the book and the buyer's list, and then the seller signs off everything, so they know exactly what we're saying, what we're not saying about the company, which buyers we're going to, which buyers we're not going to, and then so that's about a month. Once we go to market, the average is sometimes the average going to market is probably 12 months to close, 10 to 12 months. Our time frame typically is 6 to 8 months, because we bring a team of 5 or 6 people to every deal versus just one person. So we just can move more efficiently without cutting corners. So when everyone's keep it obviously confidential, there's no reason that your employees, your competitors, your customers should know that you're thinking about selling your company. So with that process that can go to market, being in market could be 3, 6, 9 months. Typically with our clients and our process, it's 30 to 60 days. So a month to prepare, 2 months in market, a month to kind of narrow down which buyers, bring them in for half-day meetings, kind of vet them, they vet us. And to get to those, you talk about LOIs, letter of intents, and then getting that LOI signed, and then 60 to 90 days or 2 to 3 months from LOI signed to close. So if you look at a month to prepare, 2 months in market, a month of negotiations, and then 2 to 3 months, that's where you kind of end up in that 6, 7, 8 month time frame. And deals can take 3 years. But typically, if we're with our process, we're calling the shots. We're setting the deadlines. We're not letting the buyer set the deadlines, because that's where unsolicited offers are. We could talk a whole episode just about unsolicited offers, because there's a reason that buyers spend all kinds of, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, trying to get it on a one-on-one negotiation with a seller, because they know if they can get to one of your clients before one of your clients talk with someone like us, hands down, they're getting a better deal. Again, going back to that club pro playing a guy that never played golf before, they are going to get a better deal. And if that wasn't the case, they would just sit back, not spend any of that money, just sit back and wait for deals to come on the market from a different investment banks, because they're going to pay the same price anyways. But yet they flooding the market. Every client that you've talked to has probably got a call, an email, a mailer, or an offer from a private equity company, family office, someone that says, I want to buy your company. And that's the reason why.
Yeah, it's everywhere you turn on social media these days. Everybody's a business broker. Everybody's in acquisitions. Everybody wants to do mergers. They all want to buy your company. Every group is pitching this, and they're on the other side. They're telling you what you should sell your company for. They're using these country club multiples, or multiples that they've heard from somebody that absolutely make no sense. And when I'm speaking to them, I go, "What is that multiple on? Is it
Right, right, exactly.
How did you get to that number?" I usually get a blank set. He goes, "Oh, my buddy sold his company for that, so I think I can too." Well, he was in manufacturing. You're a roofer. Totally different, right? How much harder does that make your job today?
Yeah, we talk what is real. It does make it tougher. We always talk. It's one of our core values is to say, we are going to tell you, Mr. and Mrs. Business Owner, not what you want to hear, like so many firms will. We're going to tell you what you need to hear in order to make a well-informed decision. And if the answer is no, that's perfectly okay. But we're not going to tell you, baseball analogy, what does a home run or grand slam look like? We're going to tell you what does a single or double look like. That's what reality is. And if we go to market, again, with no asking price, we hope to hit the home run or grand slam, but we want to talk reality. And yeah, there's firms out there, national firms, they do almost 500 day-long seminars a year all throughout North America. And in other groups out there, and their goal is to tell you what you want to hear. It's because they get paid. There's a seminar person, the speaker, and then there's a closer. And it's just one example. And they only get paid on the upfront fee of $50,000. So they come in, they tell you what you want to hear, they get 50 grand, and then they're off to the next town. And those groups have told me, again, I'm not going to mention any names, but they've told me that their closing ratio is 10%.
Yeah.
10%. Ours is 85%. So yes, you can't just, again, the old adage of it's too good to be true. Many times it is. You know, if they go, oh, man, I thought it was somewhere in the 5 million. They're telling me it's 10 to 15, but you got to pay 50 grand to get in the game. I've had people scrape together 50 grand. You know, I've heard stories, and it was they got nowhere near that. They didn't get any offers over 2 years. So you really got to do your homework of who you're going to work with. You know, what's their background? How many deals do they take on at once? We only take on typically 3 to 4 deals per investment banker, M&A advisor, and we still got a team of 5 behind them. What's their closing ratio? Ours is 85% over the last 5 years. You know, and have them show you that. Talk to some, you know, do you have references? Talk to some sellers that they've worked with. Do they work on the same size? You know, if you're doing $20 million in revenue, a business broker probably is not the right fit, and neither is Goldman Sachs. You know, that's where we fit in that lower middle market space. So you want to find the right buyer, because if it's let's just say you have a $500,000 company, the odds that buyer, again, national surveys by IBBA, M&A Source, and Pepperdine, the Market Pulse survey will show that on average, that buyer is going to come within 70% of the time. That buyer is going to come within a 20-mile radius. And if you got a company over 5 million in value, roughly 70% of the time, that buyer is going to come from over 100 miles away or more. So, you know, if you go, oh, I've got a great $400,000 company, it's beautiful. You don't want to find an investment bank on the other side of the country that, you know, has done a deal in your space, because that's not the right person. Someone local that has a good local presence, a good business broker, that's who you want to work with. And the flip side, if you've got a company doing 20, 30, 40, 50 million in sales, you don't typically want to go with your local business broker, because it's a different model of how you go to market. And it's most likely not going to bring them any advantages, because the buyer's going to come from somewhere else around the country. But those are just some things you could do to really screen your investment banker, as you should, to make sure, because again, you get one chance to do this right.
Scott, thank you so much for being here. We want to be respectful of your time. Can you tell everybody how they can get in touch with you, Cornerstone, and more importantly, find your book?
Yeah, so Scott Bushkie, Cornerstone Business Services Inc. We're in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Our website is cornerstone-business.com or cornerstone-business.com. Phone number is 920-436-9890. And here's the book. Finish Strong, Sell Your Business on Your Terms. You can find it on Amazon or any other source online. Unfortunately, they don't let you bundle the two together, so you have to put it in the book and then put in Finish Strong workbook, and you'll get them both, because you definitely want the workbook with the book. It helps business owners just take simple, easy steps to that eventual transition, you know, whether it's a year or 10 years from now.
Scott, last question before I let you run. If you were on the buy side right now, what industry would you be looking at?
Oh, that's tough. You know, I would look in. I mean, a lot of people are in the home services space right now. There's a lot of people chasing that space. So the multiples are
crowded right now, isn't it?
What's that?
It's a crowded space.
It's a crowded space. I would look at the more blue collar, dirty, less sexy companies, the better. And if you really wanted to limit the competition, you drop below 2 million in EBITDA, because once you hit 2 million EBITDA, that's where a lot of buyers' starting point is. But from 1 million to 2 million EBITDA in a blue collar space, where the owners work themselves out of the business a little bit, and you know they have no succession plan, and what you see a lot is they're order takers. They built up the reputation. They got a good company, and so they're not looking for any new business. And you could come in with new energy, maybe some marketing, and really grow that thing. But something that can scale. You just don't want to typically just buy a job. So find something that can really scale. But yeah,
so give me a landscaping company, a pool
landscaping company. Yeah, anything with some recurring revenue, or you know, a maintenance. You're doing industrial maintenance on factories or anything along that line, where you're coming out every once a quarter, once a year, whatever it might be. Those are companies that you know can be very good buys.
I love it. Thank you so much, Scott. Everybody, that's a wrap of the Liquid Launch Project. We'll see you on the next episode.
Go Packers.
Go Pack.
Thank you for listening to the show. And make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of The Liquid Lunch Project.